Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Reisch, and today I'm going to be presenting a little bit on some visualization and sonification stuff that I've done with biodata in Touch Designer. So a little introduction. I'm a recent grad from the MFA Computer Arts Department at School of Visual Arts, like many folks here at Volvox are as well. And I'm pretty new to Touch Designer. I just started learning last fall, but I had Javier as my teacher, so I was in good hands. And this work came from some of the stuff that I was doing for my thesis project called Fruiting Bodies, which combined some live biodata fueled audio, which I'm going to talk about today, with some projected and interactive visual sequences. I don't know if Georgios is still here, but he was helpful with some of that stuff, so thank you for that. All right, so what I'm talking about today is going to be based around this biodata device that I built for the audio piece of my thesis project. The schematic is open source. You can find it on GitHub under Electricity for Progress. And also somebody bought it and now it's commercialized and you can...
Just move back a little bit. We're getting some feedback.
Oh. Is this better?
Second.
Think so? Better? Okay, cool. Like I was saying, somebody bought this. You can buy for a couple $100 a plant wave that does a similar thing on the internet. But if anyone's interested, I encourage you to build this yourself. It's my first physical computing project, and I was able to do it, so pretty much everyone can. But it works with a 555 timer. It pulls information from electrodes and then outputs MIDI data that could be used in a variety of ways. So, like I said, it's measuring micro fluctuations in electrical current, electrical conductivity. So you can use it as I did with live fungi. You can attach it to your fingers and listen to the micro fluctuations in your own body. And basically, the voltage corresponds with the pitch that's outputted on a MIDI scale, and you can plug that right in and use it in any DAW, which is how it was intended to be used. So you can listen to like your own micro fluctuations in electrical currency with in GarageBand or in Ableton, or you can use it in more expansive ways, which is what I'm going to be talking a little bit about today. So I'm going to first share a little bit of how using this device has evolved in my own work. On the left side there was the first ever prototype that I made, and I went and bought a portobello mushroom from Whole Foods and plugged the device into GarageBand, used the default instrument, which was a piano, and this was the result. I'll play it again. Yeah, so just some piano notes coming out, reading some data from the portobello. So that was the first iteration, and then as I continued to work on this project, I was interested in thinking about kind of curating like a visual language to start to visualize some of that data, and also think about more intentionally about the sound that was coming out too. So Agsy, who's in the audience, helped me create a 3D model of the lion's mane fungi that I was pulling data from, and we made a visualizer in Touch with a point cloud. So the points are kind of oscillating based on the data that we were getting from the lion's mane mushroom, and I kind of made some decisions around what I thought the lion's mane, which is like a pretty funky looking fungi if you've ever seen it, what I thought it might sound like, and this was the result. Yeah, so yeah, definitely elicited responses from people and pushed me to think a little bit more critically about how I was using this device and what assumptions people were making based on how I was using it. So a lot of folks were listening to this and they were like, oh, so this is what lion's mane sounds like, which isn't quite what's happening there, right? I'm measuring micro fluctuations in electrical current and applying sound to those, but this is not what the lion's mane sounds like. So that brought me to, this is Max, not Touch Designer, but this is where I started using the data in the audio work for my thesis project, and I ended up kind of creating my own soundscape with field recordings and then using that data from the biodata device to change things like speed in the audio track so that you could hear kind of the influence of the live data, but I wasn't using it as an instrument in the same way, the original iterations, in the way that this kind of device was quote unquote meant to be used. There are some oscillations and variations from that live fungi data. But anyways, since I've graduated, I've been thinking a little bit more expansively about how I can use this data in Touch Designer to go a little bit further with it and in turn abstract it a little bit more. So I've been doing some like very, very simple. A lot of folks here probably do this with their eyes closed, but for me, it's a good exercise in thinking about how to use data that was meant to be confined and used on a MIDI scale in more interesting, creative ways. So I've been experimenting with the audio oscillator chop, just changing bass frequency with this data, changing colors from a movie file in top, and then also changing RGB values for output on an LED strip. So just the beginnings of some sort of experiments with how this data can be used a little bit more outside of the box. And just put this in here to show that I'm already like changing oscillations in electrical current into MIDI data is an abstraction of that original data, like an abstraction of what you're actually reading from the living thing. But then I'm doing even more abstraction of that data in Touch Designer to use it appropriately to affect those parameters. But it's kind of brought me to the main considerations that I've been moving forward in kind of my thinking and my work with, which is around what level of responsibility I have when I'm taking data from living things and saying that I'm collaborating with living things, but really kind of pulling that data pretty far from the actual biosystems and biorhythms that it's reading. So definitely grappling with, as an artist, what that means. Can I say I'm collaborating with, say, fungi if I'm really kind of using the data from the fungi in a way that might not be super different from just like a random string of numbers that I'm plugging into Touch? And to me, I think that it matters as an artist in terms of how I present that work, right? So if I'm presenting my project, like my thesis project, saying like, oh, this is what like fungi is making the sound in the project, to me, that's not a super honest and transparent representation of what's happening. So I think Touch Designer has kind of allowed me to go further in my thinking about how to use biodata as an artist and how to bring that more creatively into my work, but also more responsibly into my work as I think about like the ethics of bioart in large. So I'm sure a lot of you probably have a lot more experience and a lot more ideas for how this can be used in the Touch Designer pipeline. So definitely reach out to me or approach me later. Let me know what you think. I'm really open to ideas and would love to hear more based on the expertise that you all bring to this software. So thanks for having me. And here's my website and Instagram if you want to reach out.
We have time for 2 questions if anyone has any.
Hello. I am
Hi.
super interested in your project because I want to do something like that too. So I just wondered, can you use the serial data coming out of the Arduino and then feed it into Touch Designer and then get some more interactivity? Like, I know there's a way that, Arduino can talk to Touch Designer, and I know that Touch Designer can talk to the Arduino.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think might be an avenue towards being able to access more from the data, but the device as built has MIDI output, so I've been bringing it into Touch Designer using the MIDI in DAT instead of serial. And I can see a few different ways the data is coming in and have been just selecting out that data for my purposes. But it's a good question.